wanted to become a cop because, God, as far back as I could remember, I wanted to be a cop. I find it interesting that we call this segment Profiles in Courage because really I didn't do too much courageous. You know, if you look at some of the other Panteo instructors who went to war and did some pretty incredible things, I was just a street cop for 30 years. I had a wide variety of assignments and I enjoyed the heck out of it, but I really don't much miss it. Quite frankly, I was kind of invited to retire by the current sheriff at the time who was, how do I say this? He was an ass, but that's water under the bridge. Every day I went to work, I didn't know what was going to happen, and that was just really appealing to me. I mean, you go out there, and for the most of the time, it was just kind of mundane, routine kind of stuff, but you never knew that when you turned that next corner, that there was going to be some new event, and that right there, that unknown, is what made the whole thing exciting. I started out dispatching cars, and then I worked in the jail because as a sheriff's deputy at the time, we didn't have correctional personnel. Brand new sheriff's deputies worked in the jail for a few years before there was a spot available on the street. And I realize now that that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I can remember thinking, God, I don't want to be in that jail with those people. But you know, gathering intelligence isn't just for the military. You need to know your opponent. And I look back now and I realize that the time I spent in the jail dealing with these inmates and talking to these people and transporting them to prisons and other institutions, I learned quite a bit about my enemy or the person I was facing. One of the things I discovered is that they don't think anything like we do. They have their own thought process of how this stuff is supposed to be done and how they live their lives and they go about their business, so to speak. And that gave me a distinct advantage that a municipal cop didn't have because he never dealt with them. Once I got out of the jail, I went on the street and I really enjoyed that. For a while, I was an evidence technician, what they now call crime scene technicians. I was a detective, both property crime and violent crimes. And then I got promoted and became the training supervisor, which was probably my favorite position. So for 5 years, I ran the training programs for my agency, and I really enjoyed the heck out of that. I got promoted to lieutenant and ended up running a drug task force for 5 years that was federally funded. And we literally worked cases from Miami to Seattle. I had federal agents, state agents, local investigators in the task force. And it was an interesting but very stressful time, but it also gave me an inside look at the world of narcotics enforcement. And I sometimes wonder how we do it so well because the rules are really stacked against the police as far as trying to build these cases against these people and do it within the rules, so to speak. But you know what, we did it well. We had a lot of exciting times. We kicked in a lot of doors, and I guess between my time in SWAT, I spent 12 years in SWAT, and between that and narcotics, I did quite a few entries, and I've got a real appreciation for people who have to go in that door and take that on. I think I did the same thing that every American law enforcement officer does. He goes out there every day, he puts his life on the line, he does the best he can. And I think all this undue attention, you know, towards police shootings, the whole Black Lives Matter thing, and it's not a true representation of what American law enforcement does. American law enforcement goes out there and they truly serve the citizens. They keep those citizens safe. And it's really an underappreciated occupation. Years ago, I was at a training conference and there was a former Soviet soldier there, and we got to talking in a bar one night. And he told me that one of the things that really concerned the former Soviet Union is they were convinced that every American in the United States had a gun. And when they were trying to think about how they would invade the United States, that was really concerning to them. And the more I think about that, I think that may be the biggest deterrent we'll have to any occupying army, is that every American citizen will fight back. And to me, that's a comforting thought. So every American should be a rifleman. But you know what? I think every American should be a pistol or revolver person as well, because that's the gun that you'll have with you every day, in and out. And I've studied armed conflict, primarily pistol fighting, now for about 36 years. And one of the things that I've come to realize is that pistol fights, first of all, are over very quickly. They're over in a matter of seconds, and there's no way to fight your way to a better gun or fight your way to a long gun, because it's merely you're walking down the street, you're confronted with a bad guy, you draw guns, bam, 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 there it is. One or both of you are down. So the idea that you're going to seek cover or you're going to get yourself to a long gun isn't borne out by history. It's not borne out by fact. You're going to start and finish your fight with what you have on your person or you have in your hand. And unfortunately, the handgun is the hardest weapon system to master. And now, after all these years in law enforcement, I now am running a training company that my mission is to help the American law enforcement officer, help the legally armed system, and yes, military members, to defend themselves with a very difficult weapon to shoot. And quite frankly, at the risk of sounding a little bit arrogant, I think I do it very, very well. And I'm looking forward to doing it for a number of years to come.